Welcome back to Couch Talk, everybody. I just watched the new Netflix movie Mowgli, which was bought by Netflix from Warner Brothers. Well, Warner Brothers kind of sold it to them because they didn't think this movie was going to do good, and I could totally see why. This movie is not terrible. It's not bad. It's not horrible. It's okay, but kind of unnecessary. I really don't know why this movie was made. I mean, especially after the raging success of Jon Favreau's Disney version. I don't know why you would try and recreate this and expect people to actually run out to the theater and see this only like 2 years later. I saw what Andy Serkis was going for. He saw this as a playground to use his famous motion capture all over this place, and the motion capture is really good on some characters and then not so good on others. I feel like the CGI in this movie wasn't finished before Warner Brothers sold it to Netflix, and Netflix had to come in and kind of like tune up and finish the rest of it. And you can kind of see that they didn't have as big of a budget as Warner Brothers did, because sometimes the CGI in this movie is fantastic and other times it's just downright awful. For the characters, I mean, you got Andy Serkis directing this movie, but he also plays Baloo, the favorite, bear. Christian Bale is playing Bagheera. Benedict Cumberbatch is playing Shere Khan, and Kate Blanchett is playing Kaa. Now, there are other, obviously, voice actors voicing other characters, but those are the most standout performances out of the whole movie. Honestly, I will say this. Christian Bale's Bagheera was way better than Jon Favreau's version of Bagheera. There was just something about the chemistry between him and Mowgli that seemed a lot more pure and real than the Jon Favreau one did. I mean, I'm not saying Jon Favreau did a bad job, but the way Andy Serkis made Christian Bale's version and this Mowgli Bond just seemed like a lot more sweet and emotional, and you really felt the love that they had for each other, especially during like the scenes where Christian Bale's Bagheera was giving Mowgli like those like speeches of like hoping he would go back to the village and live with the humans where he's safe. And when Mowgli is in the village, Bagheera comes and visits him and pretty much tries to convince him to stay, and they have a really heartfelt moment where Bagheera tells him the story about how he was once, a caged animal for a king. And I'm not going to go into too many details, but it was just a really sweet moment, and you could see the love between each other, and I just thought that the performance from Christian Bale was better than the guy who did the one from Jon Favreau. But aside from him, everybody else was not as likable. I mean, I love Andy Serkis, and he is definitely the king of motion capture. He's been Schmeagol in Lord of the Rings, and he was Caesar in the Planet of the Apes movies, and now he's Blue in the Jungle Book. But his his bear just looks so deformed and hideous. And now I get it. So, for all of you that don't know, Disney movies were originally like really dark tales. Like Jack and the Beanstalk was really just a tale that parents used to tell their children to keep them from stealing. Because if they would steal, then giants would come from the skies and take them away from their homes. Pinocchio was really a tale about not lying, otherwise your nose would grow and you would turn into wood. And just like, they were all dark tales that Disney bought the rights to and made them very kid-friendly. And Andy Serkis kind of wanted to bring it back to like the darker days. So, in Jon Favreau's version, Baloo is just this big, lovable, fuzzy, cute teddy bear. But in this, it's like a battle-scarred, droopy lip, like ugly bear. And I could totally see what Andy Serkis was going for. I mean, he was trying to make this a much more realistic approach to what it would be like if a kid was in the woods with a bunch of animals. But I mean, you have to suspend some disbelief because, I mean, again, the kid is talking to animals. But this is more or less in line of what they would probably look like. Kate Blanchett's Kaa, the big snake, was not as good as Scarlett Jo's. She just didn't have too much of an eerie sense to her the way that Scarlett Johansson's did. Scarlett Johansson's snake also had very pure intentions, and although Mowgli didn't know it in Jon Favreau's, we all know it. But in this one, what Andy Serkis decided to have her do was a lot different, and I didn't know the direction he was going in it with it, and I still feel like I don't understand why he picked that direction. Baloo also had a little bit different of a role in this one. They also took out all the music because, again, they wanted to make it a darker take, so, having a sing-along in there wouldn't be good. But I gotta say, I really missed the music numbers. There's this scene where, I mean, you obviously don't have the one with Blue, but there's this scene where Mowgli gets taken by the apes and taken to, like, the ape temple, and they have that big, awesome song from Christopher Walken's ape and the orangutan in the last one, but they don't even have that character in it. It's just that the apes take him there, and then it's really just a trap, and I don't want to go into too many spoilers, but they just took out the whole musical, and it even though I kind of knew in the back of my head it wasn't going to be in it, it was just a little weird to see that scene still in the movie without that song. Also, this movie sets up some stuff that doesn't really have a good payoff. There is this little white albino wolf, and there's a heartbreaking moment between Mowgli and him towards the end of this movie, and then something happens to that wolf, and without going into like spoilers, something happens, and it's just never talked about again. Like, this was Mowgli's family member, and it's never talked about again. The movie kind of just wraps and it ends, and it's like I felt like there was a lot more that should have happened before the movie ended. It just ends. It's weird. Also, the battle at the end of this one was not as good as the one from Jon Favreau's. They do still use the same concept of fire is what helps him to an extent. In the last movie, the kid and Mowgli used fire to burn down the forest with, Shere Khan in it. In this one, the kid uses it a lot earlier in a different scene, but then he doesn't use it against like the ending battle, but he does have the help of the elephants, which was the same thing that happened in Jon Favreau's version. But in this one, I guess Andy Serkis wanted the kid to be the sole fighter because Baloo and Bagheera don't fight Shere Khan at all at the end of this one. It's just Mowgli versus Shere Khan. And I mean, the way he does it is like cool, I guess, but it just wasn't like the other one, and it just wasn't done as well. It wasn't as climactic. I don't know. The whole last battle was a little bit of a letdown. Overall, I don't really know why this movie exists. I mean, it wouldn't be terrible if it wasn't being compared to one that is so praised and loved, and unfortunately, I have to fall in with that category because I loved the last one. Like I said, Christian Bale's Bagheera was the star of this movie, more than Baloo, more than Mowgli, more than anybody. I just loved him in this role. I wish it was that Bagheera in the Jon Favreau version, and that version would have been just an all-star masterpiece, 10 out of 10 powerhouse of a performance. But he's in this one, so I don't know. Honestly, going to see this in the movie theater definitely isn't worth it, but it's definitely worth watching on Netflix. It's not bad enough to just completely ignore it. I still think the story is great, and it's nice to kind of see it in a new light and see like a darker take on it. But like I said, it's not as good as the first one. I'm gonna give this movie a 5 out of 10. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Are you excited for this movie? Did you know that this movie even existed before Warner Brothers pulled the plug on it? And how do you feel about Netflix buying yet again another big blockbuster movie? Let's talk about it in the comments down below. And as always, I'll catch you next time.